So we're going to talk a little bit about, what we're going to think about along the lines of the Alzheimer's disease, specifically the different stages, just so that we understand, if you're not familiar with them yet, what they can be going through. Those who have dementia are going to teach us a whole new way of being with each other. They may require more support than we're able to provide. And the disease presents itself slightly different in each individual, but there are also some commonalities. And those commonalities will be the ones that you'll see up on the screen. We're going to use compassion as a lens from which to see this world. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we can change our perspective from the idea of what we thought life will be upon diagnosis to what life will be. I think the most important thing to draw from these next 3 slides is the fact that the person with the diagnosis, their ability to appreciate, to respond, and to express feelings is not diminished. And it's that person that we hope to reach. Also, we want to be able to think about the caregiver and about the extended family around them, because change not only happens to those that are diagnosed, but also happens to the entire family network. What we're really talking about is how can we expand our ability to endure? So I'd like to spend a few minutes discussing compassion and mindfulness as a way to combat internal expectations of what life was supposed to be for both the patient and the caregiver, and to reduce depression, anxiety, and grief in this journey. Compassion not only for those with the diagnosis, but just as importantly, for the entire team that will be supporting that person. So we may give ourselves and our partners appreciation for the remaining strengths. And there are remaining strengths. The awareness of memory and emotions, the ability to use their senses, the ability to remember well-learned skills, some long-term memory, their sense of humor, music appreciation. Okay. Is it this one? Okay, now I'm gonna. So one of the things I talk about with a lot of my clients is this idea that some of the greatest challenges that we face aren't your fault. Things happen. From the mundane, getting a ticket or a flat tire as I'm trying to come up here. It's not my fault, but it is a bump along my road. And so how do I deal with it? There is pain and suffering in life, but we can have the wisdom to not blame ourselves. And this is something that I see particularly with caregivers. I should have done more. I should have taken the second job because we ran out of resources by stage 3 and it was just awful and it tore at my heart. Or I should have cooked more meals, or I should have had more friends and then they could have helped me. The list goes on and on. But it's the idea that we did the very best that we could at that moment in time, and we're going to do the very best that we can today. And reaching out for help means that we're just going to learn new skills, new ways of coping that might help us do even better. So what we're talking about is flexibility, empathy, and responsiveness, so that not only we, but those that we care for can be at their healthiest. I don't want to try to paint too rosy of a picture. This is an incredibly challenging time in the patient's life and in those who have to care for them. But there are also ways that we can help them to do better, and for us to be able to do better in supporting them. And the vehicle that I'm going to talk to you about today to do that is through compassion and mindfulness. And it's this idea of stepping out of the autopilot of our life. Now, maybe those of you in the audience are perhaps maybe more mindful than I was. But I can recall about 15 years of my 24 years in the military being pretty much on autopilot. Things were kind of laid out in front of me, expectations were laid out in front of me, and I sort of did them. But there's another way that we can look at our lives, another way that we can look at the individual days of our lives, and that's to live more intentionally. I've done this with individuals, and I've timed it. It takes 6 minutes for a single M&M to melt in your mouth, roughly. Now compare that to my friend who'd just take a whole handful and shove them in his mouth. That is mindfulness. The ability to turn all of your senses onto a single focus and to be present with it. And we can do this with all sorts of things. Both those things that we deem or expect are positive, and also those things that might not be so positive. I use this for pain. By focusing on my pain, I'm actually able to separate myself from it. And I can feel the texture, almost the taste of what that pain is like. And I can differentiate that pain from other pain that I might have. And when I do that, all of a sudden, it doesn't have a hold on me. It doesn't cause me to become grouchy for the entire day or for however long that pain happens to last. And that's what we mean by intentional. And so we use mindfulness to understand arising thoughts, emotions, and body sensations. What are your experiences with mindfulness? Have you guys ever experienced any other types of mindfulness? One that came to mind to me was when I was in a car accident. A guy hit me from behind at about 40 miles an hour, and I was at a stoplight. And for a brief instant, maybe 1/10 of a second, I saw everything slow down. I saw all the stuff in my little glove compartment that I had organized so well just come flying out of it in slow motion. And then all of a sudden, boom, everything kind of returns back to speed. It's like a rubber band effect. That is hyper-mindfulness. So another thing that I talk to my clients about is the idea that things happen to us, right? The experiences in the world happen to us, right? Like talk to you about the flat tire or putting the M&M in your mouth. That's the event. That's the experience. And then our brain thinks about it. I wonder what this experience means for me, which then creates emotions once we understand that. And then usually we just have an automatic response. My wife decides to chastise me for forgetting to walk the dog. I think about it. She's mad at me. My emotion is I'm mad at her. And then the reaction is I go down into the basement and hide for a while. But events are neutral. Her telling me this stuff might be just as much about her having a bad day, and that was just a little thing that kind of put her on edge, and then she just blurted it all out. And I have internal ideas, too, about being yelled at. Perhaps my dad constantly yelled at me when I was a kid. And so hearing that yelling was just a trigger that sent me off, created emotion of fear, and then I hid in my basement, which is my own stuff. It's not my wife. My wife's not responsible for my emotions. I am. And so being mindful is understanding what these sensations are that are happening around us and within us. And then be able to delineate, how do I want to intentionally react to this? So, full disclosure, we talked about Des Moines Pastoral Counseling Center as being a counseling center that also includes the spiritual component in the lives of our clients. I'm Buddhist. So when we think about spiritual needs, it might not just be that we're Christian or that we're Jewish. It could be Buddhist. And so part of this is understanding there's many different ways that we can meditate, and there's many different ways that we can be mindful. I'm going to show you just one. And for me, my meditation practice is a practice in mindfulness in a controlled environment, where instead of focusing on the M&M like I gave you, I focus on my breath. And through that experience in a controlled environment, which is quiet, which is safe, with the minimalist of external sensations that are happening around me, I practice focusing on my breath. And then that translates to being here today. I have to tell you, I have a huge fear of talking in front of people. I don't know why. I'm still trying to reach that level of sensation to understand why I have a fear of talking in front of people. And so I've been meditating for several days about, hey, Jake, what's this about? They don't have pitchforks and knives. They're not going to rush you on the stage and slice you into little bitty pieces. And so I recognize that that's my own stuff. And here I am. For those with dementia, it's about, what am I feeling right now? We talk a lot about the irritability and the anger that sometimes we find are present with those who have the diagnosis. And for those of us who are caregivers, are they mad at us? What are they mad at? Are they mad at the nurse that didn't provide what they needed? Are they mad because I didn't get the right bologna at the grocery store? Are they mad? We don't know. We have to be mindful about what part of this is our stuff. Have I had a bad day? Did my boss piss me off because I couldn't work overtime because I had to come home? I had to make sure that I began the caregiving routine that I had set up? Or was it that the person lost their usual way of communicating? Couldn't remember what it was that they wanted to say, couldn't remember what was irritating them, but they still have that irritating emotion within them. And needed to just let it go. Needed you to be able to hold on to it so that they can reduce their anxiety. So what I teach my clients is, in about 5 weeks, I teach them what mindfulness is, and I begin to teach them how to meditate so that they can increase their skill level in mindfulness. And in each week and each group of weeks, their focus changes from focusing on their breath to the next level, focusing or scanning their body, feeling the itch that's in their back that they can't scratch. Do they need to move to scratch it, or can they just be present as a container and hold on to that sensation? Does it really itch the whole time until you scratch it, or does it disappear? And that's kind of living inside our heads. We kind of move to that area. And then later on, we can start then analyzing the areas in our life that perhaps took more time than I had at that moment to be able to focus on. Why did I have a flat tire? I'm still irritated about the flat tire I had. I don't know why. So tonight, as I meditate, I might think about that. Where is the source of my irritation? Where is the source of this anger that is coming within me? Is it internal? Is it my stuff? Because the real question we want to ask is, how can I best take care of myself and those loved ones that I'm in charge of? And this seems like a very experienced group, but in case there's somebody who hasn't quite delineated this fact yet, taking care of yourself as a caregiver is just as important as the care you provide to your loved one. Because if you can't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to last the marathon that it's going to take to be able to care for them. And I can't stress that enough.